up Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the Republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, Russia, Russian, 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 the Russians. Russian.
Russia, Russia, Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. Are you guys all as tired as me and Burning Bread are?
I was thinking of that scene from The Departed with Alec Baldwin with his head in the ice, the ice water.
Yeah, seriously. We were talking before the show, and he was like, "Yeah, I was up till like 4 a.m. last night with my kids." And I was like, "Yeah, my kids got up at 4 a.m. like the last 2 days."
It's like ships passing in the night. Dad, ships passing in the night.
Oh, brutal. But
we can start 4 a.m. support calls.
Yeah, I'll pass on that.
Start a show.
A 4 a.m. show. You're right. My kids wake up. I can't do anything. Anyway, but we're both a little tired, but I do have some energy because there's so much going on. Just so much going on. And it's a lot of stuff that we've been talking about and waiting for a long time. It's like being actualized. And that's what's exciting. There's some weird shenanigans, some narrative co-opting going on by people that we aren't sure are on the good side of things, but we're going to discuss it all, and that's what we're here for. But yeah, man, got anything to add to that?
Well, just like you set it up there, the actualization, that word came to mind earlier. Obviously, I'm really excited about the Russia stuff. It's surreal, though, all across the board with a lot of this stuff, just like it was for you a couple months ago. Well, yeah. Within the last few months, a lot of devolution stuff coming full circle.
We're not quite at a month. We're 7 days from a month.
Yeah. And just, it's almost surreal when these things, like it almost seems strange when we've been talking about things and projecting things that in this world, it's totally normal to project this kind of stuff and be like, here's how the narrative's going to play out. Here's how we think devolution's going to go, whatever, right? In a public narrative. But to normies, it's utterly insane that people could predict this stuff. And yet in this audience, we've been having these conversations for years, right? Like, and I was struck by that today because I woke up to a text from my cousin who I'm like, oh, he follows the news, like he's based and everything. And he's like, bro, did you see like Trump and Putin and all this? I'm like, yeah, man, I told you, I've been telling you this for 3 years, but people just don't hear you. You know, if they're not in this world already.
That's something that we can maybe talk about. Maybe even tonight. I don't know. Like the whole normie thing, because you only have, a concept of what a normie is based on the normie in your life. Everybody's got one, maybe more. True. And like the normies in my life, they're my age. They care about sports. They care about how their 401ks are doing. They care about the whiskey at the whiskey place that is super expensive and hard to get. And like they very rarely text me about political things. And when they do, it's just like, oh my gosh, look at Trump. He's such a badass. Like, he dunked on a reporter or something.
It's like cheerleading about, MAGA stuff.
I haven't once in my entire life and friendship with these people, whether before I started getting into this, and they've known I've been into this since I started, either before or after. Not once have I gotten a text like, hey man, did you see that congressional hearing? Did you see what came out of that? Like they don't care. And so like, these are people that I know are Trump supporters. They know what I do. And like, even then they don't like care enough to send a message. So how are the other people out there that we consider to be normies? Like, how are they actually getting the news? And like, do they even have somebody in their life that's a crazy conspiracy theorist Trump supporter that they go to and be like, oh, you guess you guys were right about the Russia stuff. Even us being right about the Russia stuff, there's not many people that are conservative Trump supporters that are MAGA that talk about it. It's a small community of people, in my opinion.
It's a niche within a niche. That's why I say there's normie MAGA.
Yeah. But so like my point is the normies that people talk about, like that we're waiting to like wake up and get with the program on so many different things. I don't know what else we're waiting for. Like, I don't think they're going to, we've reached the awakening point where like nobody's the choice to know will be theirs. And that choice is like whether or not they actually want to go and see the available information. We don't have to slow roll shit anymore. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that for sure, that we don't have to slow roll stuff. And am I thinking, not going to say I ever advocated openly for slowing stuff down, but I certainly thought in the past that there was going to be much more of a normie awakening to the deeper layers of the info war, and I agree with you that I have shifted my thinking on that. The strange thing is, I don't feel that negative about it. First of all, I totally agree. The choice no will be yours. But some people say that almost flippantly, like, well, fuck them, right? It's kind of like Bitcoin maxis who say you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. Like, you get the truth at the price you deserve. I agree with that, but I've been joking on recent shows, whether it's with you or Chris or sometimes on Sunday nights, the almost how stupid and simple the central narrative has become. And something that struck me in the last few days is, like, Chris uses that term a lot, right? Central narrative. And I feel like we used to use that to describe the establishment, like the deep state, the central narrative. Lately, it feels like the central narrative is the Trump administration. Like, so I guess on a positive note, the central narrative is really paint by numbers, kind of simple and dumbed down. And I think that is the awakening stuff for normies. But I also agree that they're not going to awaken to the level or to the depths that maybe we thought they would years ago, right? Like, but the anecdote of my cousin texting me is like, I've been talking to him in depth for years. He knows I wrote the Righteous Russia series. And like, I send him a link to it. I'm like, yeah, man, look, like, I literally verbatim said read this thing from 2022. And it's like, it's not to tell him, hey, I was right about it. It's to say, you should read some of this other stuff because you won't be shocked by everything that happens, but they have no interest in it. It's like you described with the normies, you know, they're like, no, until it's like reported in the mainstream MAGA news, I'm not going to look at it.
Yeah. I just think we're maybe giving, I don't want to say we're giving the normies too much credit, but I think we're giving like the anticipated awakening level too much credit. Like we have much higher expectations of how far these people will wake up and get into the stuff. Like for how invested we've been in Trump and the news cycle and all these things and just the overall movement for so long, it's kind of difficult to expect that those people are going to catch up. And it's even harder to expect that we need to stop and slow down and go closer to them so that we do meet in the middle somewhere, as Chris would say. So I don't know. Like I'm just over the last couple of days with some of the things I've seen from the Super Bowl to the D-class thing and some of the responses I've seen to some of my questioning of motives and why I've like my perspective has almost completely flipped just in these last couple of days by some of the responses I've seen. And maybe it's not even my perspective has flipped. I just finally like figured out what my perspective is because I hadn't seen the pushback as prominently as it has been these last couple of days, and it's honestly kind of idiotic.
Let me put a white pill on it that this might be a better way to frame what I'm saying because I agree with everything you just said, like literally every part of it. And Chris has been talking about this a lot, obviously, for a long time. You know how I think it was Chris who said during COVID, it was consent through compliance. Or he says that a lot, right? About just normies doing stuff. I'm sort of strangely imagining that is what's going on, or we can apply that to the awakening process. Like on a positive note, the good thing about the fact that so many normies almost shock us to the degree to which they're separated, like they're not engaged. They don't dig into this stuff like people in this audience do. And they don't seem, to your point, they don't seem to want to. Like even as these revelations come up, they don't start digging into Russian history. They don't start digging into continuity of government plans and stuff like that. Maybe some people do, and they're actually reading executive orders these days. Like more normies are probably doing that, I guess. But even that, probably not.
Probably not.
The white pill on it, though, is that unfortunately, it seems that this is the way humans are, and this is the way human society is. The vast, vast bulk of human beings follow the winning side. And that sounds negative to say, and like even insulting, but as long as we meaning people who dig into this stuff and care about this stuff a lot and educate ourselves on trying to figure out what's actually going on and where we could actually go, that kind of bubbles up into the normie layers. Not to say that they're gonna dig into the stuff that we do, but they're not gonna stand in our way as we move forward. Like, that's sort of how I see even the Trump 2.0 administration. The things he wants to do, I don't think he's waiting for the normies to be woken up anymore, even though I used to think that. I think that if this is making sense, I think that all he needs from them is the consent through compliance, like almost a reversal of what the enemy did, where it's just like, hey guys, normies, they're not woken up as to what we think about Russia because of today's announcement, right? But does Donald Trump have the consent of the normies in 2025 to go treat with Vladimir Putin that he did not have in 2022? I would say yes. And that's a massive goalpost shift forward.
Yeah.
It's just not what we thought it was going to be, I think.
I think the way I've phrased it in the past is like previously people were apathetic to Joe Biden stealing the election because they didn't understand. Like they probably figured that, hey, Trump won this, but I don't really care that Joe stole it because I'm told by the media that Trump's a mean on Twitter. And so they were apathetic in that case. But this time around, it's kind of it's reversed. Like everybody knew the 2020 election is stolen now. Everybody knows that Trump is the mandate here. And so I wouldn't even necessarily say it's consent necessarily. Maybe it's the same thing, but I see it more as apathy. Like they're just, we don't really care. You know what I mean? Like I think there's much more apathy than there is consent. To the normie, not in this community. But
that's why Chris says consent through compliance, right? And compliance, a lot of that is apathy. To your point, like it's just like, all right, I'm just going to do this because go along to get along.
Yeah, tomato. I mean, so we're probably saying the same thing. Yeah. Where I don't see the normies slowing us down either whatsoever. But what I do see is like, I'd like to believe that we can make an impact in the info war. Like I truly like to believe that. Okay, and I do believe we can. I believe that if we have enough people and you build a strong enough foundation in your community, like the Badlands community, that we can move the needle, even if it's just slightly. We can do that. Where I see issues is like the D-class thing yesterday with Anna Polina Luna. We'll probably get into this a little bit, even though I did cry about it for a little bit on my show today. So I understand if people don't want to hear that again. But a situation like that, like if there's enough pushback on something that we see as unnecessary, then is it possible for us to like affect how our government does things? Like think of the continuing resolution that we had not long ago. Maybe it was planned to go down that way the entire time. Fine. But still, like they needed the story played out that people played a role in getting that continuing resolution from 1,700 pages down to 111 or whatever it was. And I like to think that is a possibility that we can still make that change. And if we have enough people that are like just accepting what we're being told as, well, this is part of the plan, Trump knows better, how dare you question that, then that is preventing people from moving forward and affecting any change. Because you're advocating to just stand still and wait. And as Chris would say, cheerlead as whatever happens. And you're not advocating what should be done at all. You're not advocating for the truth at all. You're literally advocating for a standstill position. And I have a really hard time accepting that. And that's been my issue these last couple of days, is people would rather just sit back and watch things play out while we cheerlead. And I can't think of a better word for it. Like as Chris says, cheerleading is what these people are doing. And that's why. Like let's try to make a difference here. Let's get the government we want, not the one that we're going to be given.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that the way I frame it is it's funny because I try to do the bicameral thing and think of all these possibilities, right? It's like we've talked about for years on this show. I probably do verge more into the Patriot control stuff than you do personally. Probably pretty close to a lot of the Q crowd. And again, I am a Q follower, read the Q drops, believe that's a real thing, etc. But I've long maintained that the irony of it is that first of all, you have to consider the possibility that you're wrong about it. You, the general you, like me being wrong about the Q drops. We've had a lot of great conversations about that publicly and privately over the years. Chris has some fascinating thoughts about that, alternative theories. I've written about Operation Trust back in the early 1900s in Russia. I personally don't believe that the Q drops are an Operation Trust, but I have to keep that in my head. You have to. It's irresponsible not to, as somebody who considers yourself an InfoWar. But besides that, to your point about, and Chris's point about cheerleading, if we accept the premise of a lot of people in this movement that we're watching a movie, even if we accept that premise,
I don't.
the point, I know, I'm just saying for the sake of argument, I still don't like the approach, because even if you do think it's a movie, what was the point of the drops? The point of the drops was to provoke engagement, meaning action, in our systems, and if not in our systems, then exactly what you're talking about. It was to provoke engagement in the narrative. It was supposed to front run the timeline, informational timeline, as Chris would say. So my point is that even if you are a Patriots full control, we're watching a movie person, sitting back and watching the movie and cheerleading is not what you should be doing. It wasn't the point of it. And I think the drops make that exceedingly clear. It just seems that some people who interpret them missed all of the parts where it's like, you need to keep pushing forward. You're the frame and support. You're the ones who have to do this, right? Like, that's the thing that can frustrate me, is because I feel like some of the people that follow that stuff and comment on that stuff, they've almost misrepresented what I interpreted as the intent of those drops, which was not to be like, hey guys, just sit there and watch all this play out. Yeah. And I thought it was more like engaging. And either way, it's on us. You know, I've said this for months now. Trump using the word mandate throughout 2024 hits on exactly what you're talking about. And even if you think, as Chris calls them, the fantasy team are really Trump's MAGA Avengers and they're going to like take down the deep state, you still owe it to yourself and the country to question everything that's going on, to not just cheerlead, and to move forward as far as we can move forward. And one more point on it would be that another person who's using this word a lot, like in the Oval Office and his viral little video yesterday, is Elon. He's constantly talking about mandate right now. He's saying we're going to do what the American people want. That means that you have to demand it. You don't just sit there and go like, don't say mean things about this Trump orbiting person.
And that's just it. Like, you can't say you're fighting an info war and then all you do is sit there and celebrate everything that goes on. That's not
no matter what it is. War.
Right. And I think Chris is probably taking the most heat. I mean, we should have just had him on today to talk about some of this stuff, because he he's not afraid to question anybody. And even like Tulsi Gabbard, I'm pretty neutral on her. I haven't done a full deep dive, but I know Chris has dug deeper on her. And like, there are some legitimate questions to be made about Tulsi Gabbard and her allegiances. Like, I think that's okay. But if you bring that up, you get shit on by a lot of people. Like, oh no, part of the plan, like all these things. And that's unacceptable. If we're fighting an info war, we need to be able to operate and fight that info war and be okay with people questioning any parts of the narrative. Because another aspect of this too is, like, I've always thought, you know, what if Trump is doing something? And I'll go back to the continuing resolution bill as a great example, because I don't think Trump was ever going to let that continuing resolution pass with 1,700 pages. No matter what, it was going to get trimmed down. But they let it play out the way it did to get us engaged and activated. What if he's doing that with multiple other things? Like, what if he's doing that with some of these cabinet picks? Yeah, exactly. So like, we can't just sit by and get upset at people for questioning certain things. We got to be open to it. But we'll come back around to talk about the Anna Paulina Luna thing. I got to get to
just on that note, though, what you just said, how many times, like, whether you want to use the term Scaramucci model or whatever, how many times has Trump announced something that he wants, whether, especially where it's related to a person that he's appointing or giving some sort of role, whether it's official or unofficial, and then his base pushes back, and then like 3 days later, he's like, yeah, actually, we decided not to do this. Exactly to your point. Like, there is clearly a feedback loop, I think, between Trump and his base. And I think that's why they keep hammering people with that mandate word, like, because they're not looking for you to just be like, he did another thing that's, I think, is supposed to be good. It's like, no, you're supposed to look at this. And then if you don't like it, you're supposed to say something about that. And then usually they end up moving in the direction we want them to move in after saying stuff like that.
Yeah, and Rise of Tiredness, man, in the chat. Wait, can't there be some in between? Like, why is it either cheerleading or moving forward? Catharsis is part of the story of the war. Absolutely. Like, what I'm saying is, like, you can cheerlead for the things that you're excited about, and then question the things you're not excited about. Whatever. What's frustrating is all the same people that are questioning like why I'm doing something. You go look at their profile. They're literally never doing anything other than cheerleading or calling out people for not cheerleading the same things they are. That's my issue. Like there's people that are stuck in this phase. Like I could list off 30 of them right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names, but all they do is cheerlead. And I just you're stuck. You're in quicksand there. You can't get out of it. And that's the thing that's not moving us forward. Like obviously there's things to celebrate and cheerlead right now. Things are really exciting and things are moving forward. But that doesn't mean they're moving forward perfectly. Like there's things we could probably do better. But the point is if all you're doing is cheerleading, you're not fighting an info war. You're
also
cheerleader.
The second part of that you hit on, I think, is the big one, where you said, it's not just that these people are cheerleading. Okay, if you want to do that, like I don't think you're actively doing damage to the info war, because then people who want to move forward can move forward, as Chris always says, and you can stay in your cheerleading corner if you want, right? But the second point you made, they attack people who don't. So there's a word, I used this on Twitter today, in kind of the culture war sector of YouTube. They call it toxic positivity. We've heard the term toxic masculinity and all this kind of stuff. So toxic positivity is exactly what you're describing. It's when people want to feel good about something, so when you question it, they attack you for questioning it, right? And that's actively damaging to the awakening. You could argue that cheerleading is just not moving us forward or backward, but attacking people like Chris, when he's like, hey, did you guys know about this Tulsi Gabbard connection? Hey, did you guys know Peter Thiel funded JD Vance's entire life? Now, hey, if you think Peter Thiel's a good guy, then you think that that's a good thing. But people will attack him for even trying to look into the background of somebody like JD Vance, who was elevated by tech oligarchs who may or may not, be aligned with our long-term goals here. So the toxic positivity is the thing that I think is the most damaging.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The only toxic trait we want is masculinity. Toxic masculinity.
Bringing that back.
Toxic positivity is definitely detrimental, I would say. Let me get to our sponsors real quick, and then we'll get into our first topic. We spent a whole half hour talking about just bitching about other people, bringing them down. First up, we got, let me see, who do we got? Save Pulse. Oh, 1 second. I'm going to start this over because I totally messed this up. Okay. First up, we got Save Pulse. Save Pulse is committed to keeping you and your family healthy with top quality medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and more. Ordering process is streamlined for your convenience, and we pride ourselves on offering unbeatable prices. Now is the time to prepare for any health scenario. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/meds to stock up on essential antibiotics and viral care medications. Ensure you're ready for anything by visiting badlandsmedia.tv/meds, and don't forget to use the promo code Badlands at checkout to get 10% discount on orders over $150. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/meds. Use promo code Badlands to save on your health essentials today. And then next up, I see you in the chat. What'd you do?
There was a few comments immediately being like, what's wrong with JD Vance? And it's like exactly my point, is saying we didn't even say anything was wrong with these people. We just said like, hey, did you guys ever look into the back? Like, are we allowed to look into the background of people that are orbiting our presidential administration? Because you guys know that it's us, right? Like us, the American people, are the ones in the Oval Office right now, right? It's not like an Avengers team. We're the ones who are supposed to be the people, are supposed to be in power right now. So it is actually okay to look into the backgrounds of your elected representatives and find out who's who and what's what, because I bet you that the Patriots have done this as well, right? It's like...
My two favorite rebuttals that I've seen this week are, one, like, I trust the plan, which I get it. And my rebuttal to that is, okay, well, like, how long is when do we stop? Like, can we stop questioning the plan? When can we start questioning the plan? Like, when does it end? Is there an end date to the plan, or are we doing that forever? But even beyond that, the one that's more upsetting to me is I trust Trump, because you're acting like I don't trust Trump too. I obviously trust Trump. But the thing is like Trump is literally the only person the only person that I could guarantee you is constantly running ops, psyops
on
at all
everybody.
times. He's the only one I can guarantee is doing
And
that.
he said he trusts nobody, to your point. Donald Trump said, I don't trust anybody in a very recent interview, right?
Yeah. So like if you know this is the only guy running ops, how do you know that everything he does isn't an op? Like he could be pushing a certain person and that's an op, and it's meant for us to call him out. Like that's the thing that drives me nuts. Like I trust Trump, but you don't know if he's running an op or not. And it doesn't mean I don't trust him either. Like I trust at the end of it, he knows what's best, but maybe the whole point of him pushing something or doing something is to get us to push back on it. Like the Gaza thing that we just saw. I don't think he actually wants to go in there and own part of the Gaza Strip. I think that's to get the Sovereign Alliance involved and them take it over.
Exactly.
But are we allowed to call that out or what?
That's actually a great example, I think, of the Trump game theory, is that we are not always right in how we're interpreting what Trump's moves are. But to your point, we on a baseline level believe that when he is deploying something like that, there's game theory involved, and we're trying to figure out what it is, right? Then we get on these shows and we're like, you lay out a theory, I lay out a theory, Chris and Ghost lay out a theory, and then like all of us end up being wrong, right? But we end up we're trying to project it forward, where that's what we're talking about. Is other people are like, well, he said these words in this order, so that is the current truth, even though it never ever goes that way. Like Trump always says something that doesn't come to pass, and it's not because he's lying. It's because, as you said, he's running ops, he's running psyops, he's making deals, art of the deal. Like, and it's so funny because the same people that are like, bro, have you even read Art of the Deal, clearly don't understand Art of the Deal, because the first rule in the Art of the Deal is that you're never giving full information to your enemy. You're never giving them your whole position.
Okay, Art of the Deal right back there.
I'm gonna bet that a lot of people that cite Art of the Deal have not read Art of the Deal.
Probably
and a lot
not.
of people that post Sun Tzu quotes probably have not read The Art of War either. John's going to read it for us all right now.
Got them both right next to each other, right below my pastoral certificate, because I'm a reverend now. I keep forgetting that you all need to refer to me as Reverend Harold. At GART, in less than a month, I will be performing marriages for anybody who wants one, as long as it doesn't interfere with Zach's marriage, because that's the one that I was asked to do. So I'm happy to marry everybody that shows up if you're willing.
He can also marry you against your will.
Yeah. If you misbehave at GART while we're there, I'm just gonna marry you on the spot to the person you're sitting close to. We do have one more sponsor. Let me talk a little bit about Goldco. The last 4 years put so much stress on American family finances. Help end that stress now and celebrate the golden age with President Trump by diversifying with gold and silver. Remember President Trump's first term? Gold increased by 55%. Don't wait. Diversify your hard-earned assets and buy your gold from Goldco now with no minimum purchase minimums. Goldco has been established as a top-rated precious metals company and a leader in the gold industry, providing white glove treatment for over 10 years. Their buyback guarantee assures that if your situation changes, they will repurchase your metals at the best price, providing you with peace of mind. You may even qualify for up to 10% back in bonus silver. Visit badlandsgold.com to claim your free information and instantsilver.com/badlands to see how much free silver you can get. Find out the relationship between gold, silver, Trump, and you with the free report focused on Trump and your financial future. That's badlandsgold.com and instantsilver.com/badlands to take control of your financial destiny.
Gold's about to cross $3,000 for the first time.
Yeah.
Looking pretty good.
Happily, I will happily unmarry you from your husband, Miss Sprite.
I would say that I would rescind her privileges to this nation, but she's a citizen now. Maybe we should roll that back.
Anchor baby. Is that or did she do it the other way?
She already was a citizen. No,
okay.
She already was a citizen, yeah.
Anyway, well, let's talk a little Sovereign Alliance. Just generally what's happened like in the last week or so. Yesterday, it came out that Steve Witkoff was in Russia and coming back with Mark Fogel or something. I can't remember the name. A prisoner over there. The prisoner, which is interesting, is he was incarcerated for the same reason that Brittany Griner was. He was incarcerated before she was, but when Biden traded the arms dealer back to Russia for Griner, they left this guy there. So interesting how that works. But anyways, coming back now, we exchanged something Vinnick or whatever. He's a Bitcoin guy that we
Yeah,
have.
some kind of, I don't know much about him, but yeah.
Yeah, I talked about him on the
crypto
show
guy.
this morning, but I can't remember his name now. I think it's like Alexander Vinnick. Alexander Vinnick. I nailed it. So he's going back there. He allegedly created and was the owner of a Russian Bitcoin exchange that was being used for illicit activities. But anyway, so
the
he's over
Russian
there.
Silk Road, pretty much. The Russian Ross
Pretty much.
Ulbricht.
Yeah, Trump released 2 Bitcoiners.
That's
now,
kind of interesting. Yeah.
But so over the past week, we've had news that Colonel McGregor is going over. Not McGregor, sorry, Kellogg. General Kellogg is going over to Ukraine on the 20th. And then the next day, which would have been yesterday, Trump announced that also Scott Bessent is going over there to Ukraine. And then today he talks about this long phone call he had with Putin. And maybe I'll just bring that up so I can read it, because he lists a whole bunch of other people.
Statement.
Yeah, a whole bunch of other people going over there. He lists all the things that they talked about. It's just a really good post. And so it's worth exploring, because now it's last week he handled or at least he initiated the handling of the Middle East conflict. And this week it's all about Russia. Here's what he said. A long one. I just had a lengthy and highly productive phone call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. We discussed Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, artificial intelligence, the power of the dollar, and various other subjects. We both reflected on the great history of our nations and the fact that we fought so successfully together in World War II, remembering that Russia lost tens of millions of people and we likewise lost so many. We each talked about the strengths of our respective nations and the great benefit that we will someday have in working together. But first, as we both agreed, we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war in Russia-Ukraine. President Putin even used my very strong campaign motto of common sense. We both believe very strongly in it. We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We have also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately, and we will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform of the conversation, something which I will be doing right now, as he's still truthing. I have asked Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Director of the CIA John Ratcliffe, NSA Advisor or National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Ambassador and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiations, which I feel strongly will be successful. Again, the interesting part here is Kellogg and Bessent both left off this list. Also, it's kind of interesting that Richard Grenell was not on this list, because he's like his special challenging envoy guy. But anyway, millions of people have died in a war that would not have happened if I were president, but it did happen, so it must end. No more lives should be lost. I want to thank President Putin for his time and effort with respect to this call, and for the release yesterday of Mark Fogel, a wonderful man that I personally greeted last night at the White House. I believe this effort will lead to a successful conclusion, hopefully soon. And then much shorter conversation with Zelensky. This was not
right after people were like, Zelensky's not a part of these negotiations. Yeah. Within 2 minutes, Trump posted this, which I got a kick out of.
Yeah,
you know.
It's a little footnote here. I just spoke to President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine. The conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, wants to make peace. We discussed a variety of topics having to do with the war, but mostly the meeting that is being set up on Friday in Munich, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead the delegation. I'm hopeful that the results of that meeting will be positive. It is time to stop this ridiculous war where there has been massive and totally unnecessary death and destruction. God bless the people of Russia and Ukraine. Now, 2 more things I just want to say quick, and then I'll pass it over to you. Or maybe 3 things, 2 things. There's an article that came out where Zelensky's like, I'm open to a land swap with Russia now, guys.
Yeah.
You know, that land swap that Russia wanted back in 2022, like literally the same deal.
The same deal.
Which also includes what Pete Hegseth said in front of, I think, was he in NATO today? And he's like, well,
it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Ukraine can't come to NATO. We will not put any Western troops on the ground in Ukraine.
And we need to give up the idea of getting that territory back.
Pre-2014 territory. Yeah. And so it's like, this is literally the exact same trade deal that Putin suggested and put forth, which was leaked back in 2022, which NATO, Biden, the UN, all those people basically shot down.
Zelensky agreed to, by the way, which somehow gets lost in the story.
So funny. Yeah. Anyway.
Did you have a couple other things he said? Or was that
I think so. You just rudely interrupted and I lost him.
Sorry.
So. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this has been my favorite story in the info war. It's why I entered it, the Russia stuff. Um, I absolutely love that statement. Before we even get into the particulars of the deal, I think that statement is extremely signal on many different levels. What I loved about it was, I mean, the whole like, for anybody who's read the Righteous Russia series, I've never pretended it's this like incredible deep dive in terms of the particulars of geopolitics and deal making and all that. Like the idea
pretty
behind
lackluster,
it
for
is.
sure.
The idea behind that series was, what is the story of Russia that the Western man has been told over the last 100 years? And is that story accurate? Have we been told an accurate story? Obviously, we now should all know, no, we have not been told the truth, right? So then what happens? The rest of the series is about what happens if we invert it. What happens if we totally invert that story? How does the world look? And 3 years ago now, I had said in one of the earliest pieces to that, or the earliest piece, I think, the one thing that the deep state fears more than one Orthodox Christian superstate or a sovereign superstate is two. And can you imagine if the US and the American people, not the government, the American people and the Russian people were aligned, and we have the same values, you know, we're affecting a pincer, power projection, global power projection, peacemaking, right? And I think that's really what's going on here. The reason I find so much signal in Trump's statement is, man, I mean, in part one of Righteous Russia, it's called The Three Stories of Russia, and it's all about all of the death and destruction that they have faced because of engineered globalist wars, right? So the whole idea that we've been talking about forever is, who is the enemy? The enemy is the deep state. Who is the deep state? It's a globalist criminal cartel. The EU, NATO, it's in the US, it was in Russia, it was in China, it probably still is to some degree. What is the antithesis of that? Sovereignty, multipolarity. That's the stuff Donald Trump talks about, Xi Jinping talks about, and of course Vladimir Putin talks about. The fact that Trump, throughout this statement, talks about how Russia and the US used to be allies and we fought together in so many wars and Russia has lost all these people. Even little things Trump does in his statements when he says we discussed the power of the dollar. I mean, like, you can read that in many different ways, because another thing I've written about extensively is one of the big victories that Putin has had since 2022 is over the petrodollar. Remember the Western sanctions that were supposed to cripple the Russian economy? And the Russian ruble in 2022 was the only currency that stayed stable while everything else, including the dollar, inflated. So there's so much signal there, but on a macro, it's like the paint by numbers. We were 3 years, 4 years ahead of this. The drop suggested that there was a potential alliance here. And as you said at the end there, I mean, I'll share a picture that will show you exactly. If you guys want to see this, this is the title image I used for an article in 2022, where I said, this is what Putin wants, and this is what he's going to get. That was a projection, and we talked about it on Power Hour at the time.
What he has right now, yeah.
And as John just said, he has this right now. He literally has this right now, and Trump's proposal and now Zelensky's proposal is that. So the public narrative, as we have been saying, is going to be a concession that Russia is not going to keep going west of the Dnieper River. Guess what? They never were going to go west of the Dnieper River. And, the last point that I want to pass to you on this is that, I don't think this is a good guy, but you'd said earlier, I saw on Twitter, like, how much you want to bet Trump's going to use perfect phone call. Obviously, he didn't use that terminology, but it takes three to tango here. And from where I'm sitting, it is impossible to believe, given the stance of Zelensky these days, not that he's a good guy, but certainly it's impossible to believe he's not marching to the beat of Trump and Putin's drum. And he has been for a long time, which is why people in Ukraine, the Azov battalion, have wanted him ousted the whole time, essentially.
And we may even be thinking too small here with with what could end up happening with Ukraine. Because if you think of what Ukraine actually is and represents, it's like a total proxy state. They've been using it and performing color revolutions and getting people in there. NATO uses it as like this proxy against Russia. And there's so much corruption that goes through here. It doesn't have a real, honest, like true military. I mean, they have some people they've been sending to the front lines, we're told, but a lot of it is the Azov battalion, which Putin said he was going in there to denazify, right? Like at the end of this, the best case scenario for the people in Ukraine is to just totally be absorbed by Russia. And the best case scenario for us to allow that to happen is to get a bunch of the mineral rights to stuff in that area. Like that may be where we're going with this. It wouldn't be surprised. There's been some, weird talk that you see out there. Who knows? But there was this interesting tweet today from this guy, Alexander Dugin. And for those who don't know, he's a Russian political philosopher. And this is just very in line with what we've been talking about for a long time. No more fears and complexes regarding mutual sympathy between Trumpists and Russians. Why should we be afraid of the globalists? They are doomed. Let us finish them on both sides, us and you. It is the real deal. And like I find this to be a significant tweet to be putting out there. This guy, I'm pretty sure his daughter was like assassinated in an attempt. It was an attempt on his life. She was the one that ended up dying. But yeah, the way they characterize this guy is like he's the brains of Putin. Let me see if I can find that quote.
Yeah, you can find that quote. But essentially, Duggan is often characterized by people that there you go.
Yeah, Dugin is a strong supporter of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Although he has no official ties to the Kremlin, he is often referred to in foreign media as Putin's brain.
Right. This is why we often say you can use the media, the globalist media, as reverse indicators and say, okay, I should keep an eye on this Duggan guy and his philosophies. And yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this stuff forever. Again, one of the terminologies that I've used for a long time about Trump and Putin is a pincer move. And what is Duggan saying there? We shouldn't be afraid. Trumpists and Russians. Let's finish them on both sides. The globalists. That's the enemy. Literally in the first part of what I wrote, it was who's the enemy of all sovereign people? Globalists. How do you stop them? Well, maybe if you have the two most powerful countries in the world recognize that the enemy exists between them and affect a pincer move on that enemy. And you can think of that kinetically, but I don't think this stuff doesn't have to go kinetic. One of the brilliant second order effects of what Putin has done over the last 3 years, as I mentioned earlier, is he has shown that the EU and the globalists in NATO outside of the United States are completely powerless. They have no actual power projection left. The only actual power projection, kinetic power projection, that the globalists have had for the last 30 years, since World War II, has been the United States military-industrial complex. It's been getting us involved in wars that by tricking the United States military effectively, right? And as your research has pointed out, which is why I've always said the pincer move required the U.S. devolution operation in order to be successful, because the only way Putin could do these moves in the Donbass is if the United States military was going to stay on the sidelines, because we all knew that the European military was going to stay on the sidelines because Europe are pussies. They have no power projection. They've been neutered since World War II. Like the whole Reconstruction, American taxpayers funded it, and there's no such thing as foreign militaries these days. I know there are. I know people freak out when I say that. I'm saying in the context of global armament, there's the US and Russia. Maybe China, if you believe that, and opinions vary there. But even then, it's basically that, and then just a bunch of proxy organizations, Azov battalion, terror cells, stuff like that. These other national militaries, they've basically been neutered since the aftermath of World War II.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also think it's interesting what Trump said here from the Oval today. Take a listen to this, because this is exactly another thing Ghost has been talking about for a long time with Saudi Arabia and their involvement. I mean, it's just so many things coming together.
Dealing with President Putin largely on the phone, and we ultimately expect to meet. In fact, we expect that he'll come here and I'll go there. And we're going to meet also probably in Saudi Arabia. The first time we'll meet in Saudi Arabia, see if we can get something done. But we want to end that war. That war is a disaster.
So think about how he says this. He's like, we're going to meet first he says he's going to come here. So they've talked about him coming here and then Trump going to Russia. And then he says, we're going to get the deal done in Saudi Arabia and make peace and all these things there. Yeah. So why
hashed it out all on the phone today, John? They just hashed it out this afternoon.
Hold on. Why that's interesting is because him coming here, Putin coming to Russia, and Putin coming to America and Trump going to Russia, that's not going to happen with this conflict going on. That can't happen with that conflict going on. That can only happen after peace is made. But he brought that up. They've already discussed the trips, even though peace hasn't been made yet. And then they're like, oh yeah, but we got to go do that first. We got to go talk about peace in Saudi Arabia. So after we'll do that, we'll have this meeting. That's kind of fascinating if you guys think about it. They're already discussing what happens after the peace, which is likely already agreed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not only agreed to. I mean, I think this gets into Chris territory, a lot of the stuff he talks about, but I think that we've all talked about the fact that the kinetic, like the videos of the war and destruction, we don't know what's real, what's fake. And besides the fake aspect of this, one of the things we've talked about quite a bit is that you can be watching footage of real atrocities, but you have no idea if that footage is describing, if the accompanying tweet from the OSINT media is accurately describing what is being portrayed in those videos. One of the theories I've floated for a long time is that a lot of the videos we've seen out of the Donbass, they remind me of when I was digging on Ukraine in 2014 during the Maidan coup, and a lot of that footage was surfacing on the chance. So I've long believed that a lot of this footage that we've seen has been recycled, and that this is why I think Donald Trump is not lying when he's talking about, like, how can we have it both ways? How can we say, oh, there hasn't actually been as much war going on in the last few years as they say, while Trump's on TV saying, hey, there's been so many people dying in this war. I think he's talking about going back to 2014 when Putin seized Crimea, when Obama, had that Maidan coup over there. There were atrocities committed in the Donbass, which is the whole reason for this whole operation, basically, the denazification effort. But yeah, I mean, the Saudi thing is incredible. And to your point, if they start doing these visits like immediately, then it will retroactively codify the idea that a lot of the kinetic action has been highly contained and localized, almost like, as Putin said, it was he has never declared war. And keep in mind, because it's important, he has never declared war on Ukraine. He has always called this a special military operation against one specific faction, and it seems like that has been accomplished.
Yeah, and there's one more clip I want to play here from Ghost, because the Saudi Arabia thing, it's hard not to equate. I mean, if that's where they go to make peace between Russia and Ukraine, it's also notable that Saudi Arabia is the one pushing back against Trump's plan for Israel and Gaza, right? And I'm not sure who Ghost is on with this, but the guy seems like super brilliant. So I think we should really listen to this. 1 second. Which is wide international support. Arab countries, including Egypt and Jordan, close U.S. allies at peace with. That is slowed down. Israel have condemned the plans and roundly rejected Trump's suggestion that they take in more Palestinian refugees. Saudi Arabia issued a rare overnight statement rejecting the idea of the transfer and reiterating that it won't normalize relations with Israel, a key goal of the Trump administration, without the establishment of a Palestinian state, including Gaza. The proposal also risks undermining the ceasefire in Gaza and the continued release of hostages taken in Hamas October 7, 2023 attack that triggered the war. Trump has claimed credit for brokering the truce, but its future is now more uncertain. So what's your take on this? Like, where do you think this is ultimately going? What do you think Saudi Arabia is going to do? Because they have come out and they did have a post on Twitter shortly thereafter. I think it was this one, pretty much saying, like, I think you clarified it's like an act of war, right?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
This is all non-negotiable for them, and there's cultural reasons for that. That this is completely unacceptable. I think ultimately this is a moment about the sovereign alliance and about the multipolar world order. If you believe in that stuff and you believe that we are entering this golden age where we're not going to be the world police and have a worldwide presence militarily, then you want the multipolar world order to emerge and to work.
Because I don't think there'd be a better story and a better liberal meltdown than Trump, Putin, and MBS meeting in Saudi Arabia and making peace across the whole world. Like, okay,
Yep.
we're done in Gaza, we're done in Ukraine, it's all done, we're done with. Like, that would be the most incredible thing I think we could witness.
And this has been seeded not just by us, but even the globalist media was picking up on some of this. Now, this is a slightly different context, but I was revisiting some old notes. So this is from October 2024. At war in Ukraine, Putin emerges as potential peace broker in the Middle East. This was talking about Lebanon and Israel at the time, because, you know, Russia has ties to Lebanon and Putin has ties to Hezbollah, supposedly. So again, we've talked about how crazy that theater is for years now, and Ghost is probably our best resource on all that stuff. But just the idea that these, you know, peacemakers is plural, right? It's not just Trump and Putin. Here's another one. This was same month. This was the BRICS summit. So India and China have had tensions for generations. And what happens? Putin brokers a conversation, a meeting between between Xi Jinping and Modi. Now, I believe that these guys are all on the same team, but publicly they were seen, you know, palling around, and Putin was getting credit in the global media at brokering this meeting between China and India. And what happened on the back, actually heading into that, is they secured a border peace deal between you know, some of the disputed regions between India and China in the mountainous regions, where there'd been all these like weird conflicts going on. And you always wonder about intel agency involvement in these cross-border disputes. Reminds one of the caucus disputes between, you know, that the CIA was heavily involved in against Russia, the Soviets the Russian Federation in the 90s, where the Russians were saying that it was not Al-Qaeda, it was the CIA that they were fighting, even though, you know, they're the same thing. But anyway, yeah, this is, to your point, like this is not just about the US and Russia. And MBS, as Ghost has talked about, it's the perfect keystone. And how poetic would it be if the area in the Middle East that has been known for being a destabilized war zone ends up being like the new place that people go to and broker these peace deals. It makes sense geographically, so it would also be great narratively.
It'd be perfect for Trump, the peacemaker.
Yep.
Just to one fell swoop, let's get it all taken care of right off the bat. I mean, really the only one missing from that is China, but we don't know. Maybe they'll be there too.
Yep.
Gonna be fun to watch.
There's one quick video I wanted to play. This is just 30 seconds from Trump. His choice of words here. This was a few days ago, I think.
I want to have our money secured because we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars, and you know, they may make a deal, they may not make a deal, they may be Russian someday, or they may not be Russian someday, but we're going to have all this money in there, and I say I want it back. And I told.
So I just that little piece. He's talking about the Ukrainians. They may be Russians someday. I mean, like
that's what I said earlier. Like Russia's gonna take it over.
Yep,
that'd be so badass. Anyway, I want to play one more clip actually from that interview, and this is very much to do with elections. You all have probably seen this by now, but take a listen.
Sports has always been something that Americans rally around to come together. They really do. You won the popular vote. You won all the swing states. But still, Kamala Harris got 75 million votes in the country.
Well, if you believe the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just say
it is ridiculous.
That the election was as it was.
Excuse me. There are 7 swing states. I won them all.
You did
by a lot.
But let me just get to the dismount here.
And I won the popular.
Have you thought about how to try to bring the country together?
He just called the election that he won fake. It's amazing. And this has been my keystone issue since day one. I haven't seen any movement and really any comments either about what Trump is going to do to address election fraud. There's been some stuff like every one of his cabinet picks. Do you believe that the election was stolen from Trump? It's like, I know that Joe Biden was, installed as president. Nobody would say that the election wasn't stolen. Very interesting word, except for Chris Vaught or Russell Vaught. He was like, the 2020 election was totally rigged and stolen from Trump. but that's like it. We haven't seen any comments or movement from Trump on fixing our election system. And here in this interview before the Super Bowl, except this clip didn't play till the day afterwards, he addresses it. He's finally asked a question, and he's like, well, no, it's all fake. And what does that tell you about everything? Like, it's so much confirmation, but it's also so nice to see him, like, he knows, and that's still on the table. We're going to get something from him at some point, but not a single journalist will ask that question.
Well, I hope you and Chris are happy with yourselves, because you doomed out so much about elections not being real that now even Trump thinks the elections aren't real. You've convinced Trump, right? Where are all the people? But can you play the last, like, 10, 15 seconds of that again? Because this is what struck me as bear here.
It's like, let me just land this thing. Let me just bring this around for a landing.
Yeah.
Let's just say
is ridiculous.
that the election was as it was.
Excuse me. There are 7 swing states. I won them all.
You did
by a lot.
But let me just get to the dismount here.
And I won the popular.
Have you thought about how to try to bring
the election was what it was?
What were we talking about, especially in November and in its aftermath, and in Myrtle Beach at GART in particular? We were talking about the unity play. That is the narrative of our new enemies. And make no mistake, Bret Baier is your enemy. And if you haven't figured that out, if you think that he's joined MAGA because of this stuff, I hope that you're paying attention to sit-downs like this, where he is trying to stop Donald Trump from casting doubt on the results of the 2024 election. And then what does he appeal to at the end of that clip? Exactly what we, and especially John and Chris, have been warning about for months, which is the unity play. Bret Baier is worried that what Donald Trump is saying just might not make the American people feel good. It might not make them feel unified, right? And, one more point adjacent to that would be, isn't it interesting recently that we found out, I don't know if Chris has been posting about this publicly, we've certainly been talking about it, on Telegram, that turns out Fox News...
Well, if we should make sure that whether he's talking about it publicly, because if he isn't yet, we shouldn't be the ones to talk about it.
I think he has. I mean, it's public news. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Just the connections between Fox and the podcasting companies, like they're orbiting Tucker Carlson and independent media, right? They're calling it independent media. So it's like, we've been talking about this for months. The idea that that Con Inc. started calling themselves independent media and went on X and went on YouTube and went on Rumble. And it turns out that they're all just funded by the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is rebranding themselves as independent media.
Yep. It's kind of crazy. And the you said thing is pretty interesting, because we haven't seen any actual direct connections to, what we would call conservative media and you said, but just that network and how it works, how they fund liberal media and push their propaganda. It's fairly similar on the right side of things with these conservative news podcasters. It's just not through USET. It's probably from something else. So I'm curious to see if we ever get to the bottom of that. But yeah, anyway, okay. So that was the election stuff. I do want to talk about, man, we hit a lot of things. We can talk about the Intel board real quick. Because Trump put this out yesterday. He announced his President's Intelligence Advisory Board, and a couple of big names I want to key in on here. This board, I was trying to look up some information, and it gets changed by every president, so you don't really fully ever know what this board is going to do for any specific presidency. Like in the past, they would actually offer oversight roles and talk about the ways that intelligence is being misused and misappropriated and all these things. Obama ended some of that. I don't know the specifics of how Trump had his handled in his administration, but the reason that's interesting to me is because if there is some sort of oversight role with this specific committee, Devin Nunes is chairing it. And that's so notable because of his role during the Russiagate stuff and the Nunes memo and his connection to Kash Patel at the FBI and part of the team. If you read Devolution Part 23, he's connected to multiple people. And so this is very notable. But the other big name on here is Robert O'Brien. Trump's NSA, the guy who's named as the continuity coordinator, and that role was the continuity coordinator until the day before Trump took office, when Biden revoked that section of Executive Order 13961. I was kind of expecting him at some point to make his way back into the Trump's administration. Really, the other one I'm keying in on is Chris Miller. We haven't heard a peep from Chris Miller, and that it's almost unusual. Like, he's not even on Twitter saying congrats to people that I've seen. He's just it's like he's completely disappeared. So whatever ops he's running or whatever. But it's nice to see O'Brien back in the mix. Another interesting one. Have you read the bio of Amaryllis Fox Kennedy?
I don't think so.
Bro, like, she it's RFK Jr.'s daughter-in-law. She was a spy, like a literal undercover, non-diplomatic spy.
Former CIA, John.
Well, hey, yeah, that's right. Former. As I said in my show this morning, for those who watch, or not this morning, this afternoon, the Daily Herald, every weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. She retired from spying, whatever, in 2010, as one does. All spies, they just take
just like Anderson Cooper and Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson never even got in.
She retired and went on to marry RFK Jr.'s son. How convenient. But she literally was a non-official cover, meaning she had no diplomatic protection. She lived abroad with a fake identity, and her cover was an art dealer, and her focus was preventing terror organizations from acquiring weapons of mass destruction. And now she's back in the United States. She made a push to be the director of the CIA. That got shut down. So they put her on this board, and I just thought I couldn't believe it. Like, when I read this bio, this is an actual spy undercover. If you think it's ridiculous that Tucker Carlson applied to the CIA and got denied, and then went on to be like the most successful podcaster in history, most famous news person in history, it's more ridiculous that this person retired, went on to marry RFK Jr.'s son, and nobody says boo about it.
Wouldn't you say, doesn't it make perfect sense on Tucker, though, to be, I know we're talking about Kennedy, but just a note on him. Like, you don't think it makes sense that you wouldn't pivot completely from going into being a clandestine operator who nobody ever hears of, working in the shadows, to being the most public media figure in the world? Like, you don't think that makes perfect sense to just, I mean, obviously.
It's quite the career change,
Yeah.
Different trajectory change.
Totally weird. And again, who told you people that? Uncle Vlad. Vlad told everybody that at the very beginning of his interview. I love, that's one of my favorite. We've seen Trump do it a lot, but Putin does the same thing, where it's almost like he preps the battle space of the conversation before the conversation starts. Like, just to let you know.
It's also fun. If you thought the CIA was corrupt, they're not. They only hire people that have merit, because Tucker Carlson's dad was in the CIA, and they wouldn't even hire his own son.
Right.
Like, that just shows you that there's no favoritism, there's no bias. Mm-hmm. They only hire people who are actually qualified for the job.
And if you guys remember that interview, that sit down, I have a feeling that the future, whatever we come to learn about many of these media figures who are ultra based in the future, revisiting interviews like that is going to hit people with a lot of hindsight clarity. Not only is it interesting to parse Putin's demeanor when he's saying that, he's explaining he looks at the camera and he's like laughing. Yeah, he's like, sort of like how you tried to become a CIA operative. But remember, Putin says that in the context of Tucker Carlson stumping for imprisoned American journalists that are in Russian prison. And Putin laughs at his characterization of them as journalists, because Tucker says, well, they're just journalists. They're not spies. And Putin effectively says, yeah, that's the same thing. And he's already laid the groundwork by letting Tucker's audience know that Tucker's daddy, as you said, was CIA, and that Tucker tried to become CIA. He just didn't quite get it. Talk about failing upwards. I know you were talking about Amaryllis Kennedy, but yeah, I mean, it is such a, to use another Russian term, it's like a matryoshka doll series of groups and advisors and appointments that are going on in this administration, and as you and Chris talk about quite a bit, it is so difficult to parse what is actually going on here because we just don't know where devolution ends, where reconstitution completes. I'm not even using the right terminology, but you know what I'm saying. Like, what is the state? What is the state of this administration right now in terms of how it is publicly presenting itself and what is actually going on behind the scenes? And, you mentioned Chris Miller, people like that. I still firmly believe, and I think you do, that there probably is a core group of actual power in this administration. And then there seems to be a narrative group. Now, some people would say that and say, oh, all the TV characters means that these people are all bad. I don't necessarily think that that's automatically the case. I think it's also possible that Trump is using a lot of these characters, and these characters know that they're being used to forward the goalposts, narrative goalposts. It's just possible, right? Especially somebody like Linda McMahon. It's like if Trump is saying, I hope Linda works herself out of a job, he seems to be using her to dismantle the Department of Education on a narrative level. But we believe that actually there's probably other names we're not hearing. So when you see a list like this, I would normally dismiss it and say, I don't know, these are other characters. But it is weird when you've got real signal names in there like Robert O'Brien mixed in with some of these other names that I'm less certain of.
Yeah, like the McMahon thing, like the Department of Education exists. It's a real thing, and they're terrible. They've been terrible forever. Obviously, there's other people within there that are going to be doing things. Like just like Elon Musk, he's not the one sitting back there coding stuff. He's got a team of people doing things. But I do think Linda McMahon is going to oversee the destruction of the Department of Education. I'm still waiting for that executive order to come through. I don't think it has yet. It's been rumored for like a week now. I do have that clip from Tucker and Putin here.
With the backing of whom?
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although it is a serious organization. I understand. My former vis-a-vis in the sense that I served in the first main directorate, Soviet Union's intelligence service.
We should thank God they didn't let you in.
Think of how base. That's even more of like talking about prepping the battle space. He's telling the audience, because most of them didn't know, Tucker tried to become CIA, seems to sarcastically say, thank God they didn't let you in, and then follows that up by saying, I'm something of a spy myself, because Putin's whole career was in Russian intelligence, military intelligence. So it's like a triple threat there where he is telling Tucker, like, I know everything about you. And like, in my opinion, what he was doing there is saying, like, this direction isn't going to go too far in the direction that you wanted it to go in. Because if you do start pulling me in that direction, I know a lot of things that you probably don't want me talking about.
For sure. Yeah, it's just interesting. Things are so exciting right now. Somebody brought this up? I don't remember who, but didn't Tucker interview Snowden? Didn't he say he interviewed him? But we've never seen that interview.
I don't know, actually.
Oh, I
don't remember if he said he did interview him or that he wanted to.
You're doing the rock back and forth from The Accountant. I watched that movie last night.
God, the first scene, me and Mrs. Bright were like, I told her, I was like filling my coffee as I was watching it before the show, and I'm like, God damn it, I did not know these things about myself.
Yeah, you did.
I'm not that retarded, though.
Well, it depends on the day. We're all that retarded at some point.
You're like, yeah, what do they call it? Stimming? Self-stimming?
Oh, that's a weird thing.
It's
not what I call it.
Yeah.
Self-stimming, burning bird.
Yep. Left hand or right hand.
It's a great movie. I absolutely love that movie. I forgot about it.
Did you? I mean, man, how many? If you guys haven't seen that, watch the episode of Story Hour last night on The Accountant.
You guys didn't even go like deep into it. You didn't even have a chance because you got both talk so damn much.
I know.
But
that show needs to be like 4 hours long. So we're like scene 2. But yeah, that just in case the cliff notes on that is Steve Mnuchin produced that movie 2016 right before Trump gets into office, and it's about a weaponized autist working for the U.S. Treasury, going after the cartels. The Gambino crime family is name dropped. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I actually stopped watching your guys' show of it so I could go watch it in the background of what I was doing. Hold on, I just gotta troll somebody in the chat here. Oh, never mind. It's too far gone. Okay, let's get to. I want to talk about that. Okay, yeah, let's talk about this D-class thing. I know we kind of already talked about this before. Talked about it on another show this afternoon, but more has happened since the show this afternoon, the Daily Herald. So I'm pretty sure Anna Paulina Luna is trying to co-opt Trump's D-class thing. Okay, Trump campaigned on declassifying all these documents, the RFK stuff, whatever. And yesterday, this huge announcement was teased by Anna Paulina Luna that, this is going to change the world. And then she comes out and all it is like, we're creating a task force and we're going to make sure that, it's going to be all about the declassification. Initial reaction, the interview was terrible. The questions were terrible. Like, nobody knew for sure if we were actually going to be getting these documents. It's been clarified that we are. And the fact that we're getting these documents, to me, it makes it completely irrelevant, this task force. And there's no like actual justification for why this should be taking place. But this is what she posted earlier today. And again, this is somebody who has not once ever in her Twitter history, anywhere on either of her accounts, because she has a personal account and her campaign account, not once has she talked about declassifying the RFK file. She's never even mentioned it. Okay. The one time she's mentioned it before this, the one time she's mentioned JFK twice before this like whole thing. One of them was saying back in 2023, if JFK were alive right now, he wouldn't be a Democrat. The other thing she said was, thank you to Donald Trump on following through on your campaign promise after he signed the executive order. Okay. Trump is the one pushing. Yeah. Trump is the one pushing the D-class, but this is what she's been saying. Where does a person go to access all these declassified documents? Once they're declassified, they should be available online. Many bad actors want to block this information from coming out. What? Hence why the task force was formed. Okay, so she's saying there's bad actors trying to prevent Trump from getting these documents out, which is
so we need a task force, John.
Which is just absolutely ludicrous to think. Like that Congress is going to be the ones that are going to prevent the bad actors from stonewalling. It's just so stupid. And then counter intel is big mad about push for JFK D-class. Wild to see it play out in real time. Pushing for D-class anyways. Listen to my interview on Glenn Beck. Like, she's this champion of declassification now. And again, not once said it. And she's saying people who are questioning the legitimacy or need for this task force are bad actors, which is stupid. Like, we're a government of efficiency now. We don't need to be wasting money on this. I said on my show this afternoon, the only reason that you would want a congressional task force to do anything is they have subpoena power and they do have classified, like, top secret clearances or whatever. But the thing is Trump said he's going to declassify this in full, and you said it here too. Therefore, those two things are not required whatsoever. So there's literally no point to this declassification thing. And she's just totally co-opting it from Trump. It's the weirdest thing. And I think we'll probably talk more in detail on this on Saturday, because Chris is a really good thought process. We should have just had him on the damn show to say it, but about how Trump is like front running all these things. And that's what it feels like. It's like they're almost caught flat-footed, and they're forced to ride the coattails of Trump. Trump does not need this task force. I'm sure later on he's going to comment on it and say like, oh yeah, it's great. But I don't think Trump had anything to do with the creation of this thing. It's totally not necessary. Just like the Doge subcommittee, totally not necessary. And all they're doing is reading things to the public that Doge is discovering. They're not actually doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, well said. Like you said, I mean, Chris will have more to say on Saturday, I'm sure. But she's like a woman of the night, right? She failed upwards as a maybe that's not.
I have no idea her backstory, and actually, like, I don't necessarily have anything. She hasn't done anything where I've like had my attention drawn to her and what she's doing in Congress. Like, if I'm being completely honest, I knew she existed, haven't seen her do anything crazy, and all of a sudden she's like, I'm declassifying everything. It's not going to happen without me.
If you had to.
What?
How would you rate her backstory on a scale of 1 to 10 if you had to?
Rate in terms of what? Like, what do you mean?
Never mind.
Like, am I rating on narrative? Am I rating it on her former job?
Yeah, woman of the night.
Is that what she
anyway,
was? Was she actually a woman of the night? I thought she was
don't know,
military.
Just passing misinformation about. No, I don't think she was a woman of the night. I'm just.
I do know she
there's
changed her
something-
name.
Yeah, there's some weirdness to her, but these look like, as Chris always says, the TV characters, and I mean the signal here is what you laid out. I mean, basically verbatim. Trump is the idea that we would need anybody else as a filter between Trump and declassification. Everyone in this audience should have learned all of this during like the fallout of the Mar-a-Lago raid and all that stuff, right? Like for years, there's been this fight about Trump's abilities to declassify back when he was president the first time. We do not need some lady to be in charge of bringing the golden tablets down from the mountaintops. So in terms of what is the intent of the op, that's what's weird. I mean, that's why it's so hard to parse. That's why it's so hard to parse the intentions of all these different, these various figures, because, it's like, are all of them in it for themselves that are doing these press conferences and being on task force? Are some of them doing actual work and other ones are purely grifting? It's almost like if you take some of them as purely narrative for their own purposes or for Trump's, then you almost have to take all of them that way. It's very difficult to start parsing them and be like, well, I think that this task force over here is doing real work for Trump, and then this one is trying to grift off of him.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I don't think we have to know what the answer to that is. I think, as you pointed out, the signal is that who has the authority to declassify this stuff? Donald Trump, the president. We have the authority to. We vested that in Donald Trump. We don't need task forces. We don't need any of this crap. And as we've been saying for months, before it even launched officially, Doge was exactly what we said it was. It was a narrative translation layer. It is a narrative translation layer of stuff that Donald Trump is doing. It's not stuff that Elon Musk is doing. It's stuff that Elon Musk is standing in the Oval Office and telling the media about so that it goes viral. But he's not the one, really doing this stuff.
I'm flip-floppy on this stuff. Like, I could totally see that all this stuff has been investigated before and they're just like publicly releasing the story out. I could see how that's a thing, definitely. I could also see where, like, because of where Trump was and what he saw, and like, they're not stupid. They know where the thing is, like where all the corruption is. And so they went to that first place. And there are like a team of 20-year-olds, like just super nerds with supercomputers. And they're just going through this stuff and finding things that are just absolutely fraudulent and ridiculous. I could totally see that being absolutely true too. With this thing, what I'm sick of is this is a good example that we were talking about before of the cheerleading. Like, I don't think, if we're like, you people are sitting here all week long celebrating every time somebody comes out and is like, oh, look at all this corruption and wasteful government spending that we just saved. Like, we're saving all this money and all this time. Like, we're being so much more efficient. But then you call out a totally unnecessary congressional task force, and it was like, oh, whoa, man, slow down. We can't question this. Trump clearly wants this, even though he's the one that issued the declassification order, and he didn't put in his executive order. You can go read it yourself. It tasked the DNI and the CIA director to create a plan to release it. We haven't even seen that plan. They presented it to him last Friday. She announced this before that Friday, so this wasn't part of that plan. It doesn't say anything about Congress's role in any of it. It's okay to question if this is necessary and if this is in any way going to obstruct the actual release of these documents that Trump said he's going to give us. And also, like, what's the nefarious reason for this? Because if it's not necessary and Trump didn't like give it its tacit approval, what's the other reason here? Why are they doing this? And I think it's okay to ask those questions.
Yeah, and that's
And
why
yes, I
it's
know
good
she's
to...
hot. Okay, I get it, but that's not a good enough reason.
A little too fake for me. I think a lot of that's going on in Congress. But I mean, if we're evaluating on like congressional scales, everything becomes relative, right? Governmental scales, I should say. Yeah, I think it's good to play with the idea of these people being not just ineffectual, but actively trying to subvert our will, the American people's will, as you said. And if that's the case, then I think that a lot of the stuff Chris talks about of Trump's strategies here, they're really brilliant. Instead of like going to war publicly with who we would consider Con Inc., Trump doesn't have to do that. He just kind of lets them, throw out their own rope. He lets them do their little pageantry. He lets them put on their little performances. And ultimately, nobody's going to stop declassification from coming out if Trump wants it to come out. So if they do try to obfuscate, like if these people who are supposed to be on the task force revealing this information to the American people end up actually stonewalling it, then Trump gets to destroy them. Otherwise, he's just going to do it anyway. Like they're really meaningless.
And the thing that's like even maybe more passionate about this almost, and maybe it's because when people push back on me on things and I think I'm right, I'm going to obviously hold my ground and not give that up. But also the fact that they found 2,400 documents that were never before declassified or given to the declassification board just like 3 days ago, that shows me that they're actually going to release this stuff, and they're looking for the documents that may not have been discovered before. That never would have came out. There was no reason to tell that story that, hey guys, we found 2,400 more documents. They could have just kept that buried. But no, these people are actually doing what Trump tasked them to do. And it's not Congress. It's people within the intelligence agencies. And this is even before Tulsi is there. It's even, I guess, CIA Director Ratcliffe is there. But it's before Kash Patel's involved too. Like we don't even have our key players in there that we've been waiting on, right? And this stuff the ball is moving and we're finding things. So I have full faith and confidence that we're going to get the declassification as Trump ordered, which is why I don't think the congressional committee is necessary. And congressional committees in general, like what were they even designed to do? Like what was the first congressional committee, and why have they become so ridiculous? Because all they are TikTok committees. That's all they are.
That's what they've become. One of the more famous ones from back in the day was the Church Committee, talking about the CIA's Operation Mockingbird, etc. But even that, it resulted in no actuals.
Limited hangout.
It resulted in conspiracy theories replaying Church Committee footage over and over again, but it didn't do anything. Now, I think that there's a role that congressional committees could play purely from a narrative perspective. Like, if you've got Anthony Fauci in front of Ron Paul again, those clips go viral, they get into the normie sphere, and then if that's followed up with actual action by the administration, then okay, cool. The committee resulted in a narrative boosting of this action, or seeded the mandate for it, provoked the mandate for it. But most of the time, it's just been bloviating. And one other reading of this kind of stuff, again, this might be the way Chris kind of talks about it, but these people on these task forces, we think they're just kind of mouthpieces, etc. If they don't, it's like they're being given the opportunity. As you said, Trump can do this stuff whenever. He's got his actual picks coming in, still yet to be confirmed. And it seems to me that with some of these people, he's waiting to see what they do. Chris and I think this was on Tuesday. I don't remember, but I think it was Tuesday. We were talking about the crypto czar, like David Sachs. And I've been kind of looking into that world a lot lately. And I don't know how I feel about him. The good thing is I don't really care how I feel about him, because I think that whatever Donald Trump and the administration's plan is with Bitcoin and crypto, they know what it is. I don't think it's actually up to David Sachs, but I find it interesting to parse the public statements of these people. And Chris said this as well. Like, what does Trump say? And then what do his appointments say? So David Sachs, for example, he's talking about a strategic crypto asset class and all these other cryptocurrencies he's involved with. But when they ask him what Trump has charged him with, he talks about a Bitcoin reserve, a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The president has charged us with exploring a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So Is David Sachs on board with that? Is Trump waiting to see if he does it or recommends it? I think that might be what's going on with some of these people too. Trump's like, hey, you ran on this in front of the people, so I've put you in the narrative position now, so you better keep stumping for this kind of stuff that we're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with all that. I just think we really need to be asking if the form of our Congress is I don't even know the right word for this. Like, not retarded. like honestly, because
I want that clip. It's like the hard-hitting analysis of Badlands media. You can only get it here, folks. But it is true. I agree.
Seriously, okay? Like, use the Doge stuff as the best example. How many committees has all this random spending and oversight and ethics and all these things? How many committees should have had some sort of like, there could have been a touch here. We could have stopped this from happening. All this you said money, but it never happened. Like, these congressional committees, what do they actually accomplish? And are they necessary? Do we need congressional committees anymore? I don't think we do.
No.
I really don't. There's got to be a better way, and I hope they approach that.
Yeah, and this could be part of what Trump is doing here, is letting these people just put on their little performances. I'm not hoping for this, but it seems like a lot of good stuff is already happening, or at least we're being told it is going to happen. Keep in mind, we need to see this stuff actualized.
None of it's coming from Congress.
No, I agree with that. But I mean, some of these task forces and these committees that have been charged with, forwarding certain pieces of the Trump agenda, even the appointments, it's going to be interesting to see if they start dragging their feet as we get deeper into 2025, and if Trump starts narratively turning on some of these appointments or committees, right? Like, because I'm not saying that's going to happen, but wouldn't it be interesting if we're 6 months down the line, and using my crypto example, if Trump is being asked about crypto and he's like, well, I charged the task force with coming up with it, and they haven't got it done. They haven't brought it to me. So like, we're going to have to do this. There could be many examples of this. And with this example with declassification, it's like, hey, well, we've got this task force that's supposed to be looking into this, and they haven't really done anything, so I guess I'm just going to have to do it. I could see that being an effective way for Trump to move forward and separate himself even more from all of these people that are trying to grift off of his administration.
That's what Congress is doing. They are totally just grifting off of what Trump is trying to accomplish to seem relevant.
As is Fox News. Yeah.
That's all it is. It's insanity, and it's got to change. It really does, because Congress is part of the problem. Them pretending to be part of the solution, it does nothing for me. And I'm not going to sit by and just like cheer it on and allow it to take place. Like, it's time to start calling this stuff out, because it's got to stop. Nate, tell me one congressional committee that actually got something done and uncovered something and revealed to the public something that we didn't already know, or that actually changed the course of history. I don't think it's ever happened.
Yeah, I mean, even I like this from Jay Vines. I mean,
yeah, that's a Chris Paul quote.
Yeah, it's simple, but man, if there's a lot of underlying signal to what's going on. That's why when we talk about narratives, it's not to say that those don't matter. I think that they matter a lot, and I think one of the good signal baseline narratives that is emerging very early into Trump 2.0, it is that Trump, he actually can do that. And we're seeing this in the normie layers. That actually is getting into the normie layers, right, left, everywhere in between, where people are kind of like sitting back and going, man, can the president do this? Yeah, he fucking can do this. Because again, we need to, I got like pushback on this for some reason the other night, but again, we shouldn't be that worried about who the president is in the future if things go in a sovereign direction that we want them to go in. But in the meantime, the president should be hearkening back to the original goal of the presidency, which is to be our sovereign representative. He's like the Voltron of America. Like, we've all vested our collective power into this representative, and that's what the presidency is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be these committees going viral on TikTok, talking about stuff that they should do but never are going to.
Yeah. This is an interesting pushback right here from OD115. John, do you really think crazy liberals or normies are going to believe you when they don't know who you are? Well, I don't care if they believe me. The point is like, it as a community, like if we're all activated enough, we can influence that kind of like recognition of storylines and whatnot. But if anybody is like less trustworthy, I hope you're not implying that they would believe a congressperson over something they see on the internet, because I know that's not true. Anyway, we should get to the rants. I feel like I'm done venting for the evening. Maybe.
Goodness gracious.
You want to pull up the boost, and while you do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about our upcoming conference, guys. Badlandsmedia.tv. Click on events, or just badlandsmedia.tv/events. We have our single day tickets now on sale. So if you can't make it for the full weekend, you can come for just one day. Those tickets are now on sale. And
John will give every attendee $1,000 for slots.
For sluts?
Slots. Yeah, everyone gets an Anna Paulina Luna in your gift bag. And a committee. You get your own. You get to be on a committee.
Oh my gosh, we should form a committee at GART.
We should have committees.
I did say
we should do some sort of content. I'll be like Mrs. Bright watching on black and white as I suggest things for her to do. It'd be really funny if every table at GART formed their own congressional committee, and we got to pick like who is the funniest committee.
That's a great idea. We should do that. Yeah, I kind of hope she's not watching because she gets real mad when we suggest things on her. But I know she
got
is.
her phone. She might be watching something else. I can see
she's
her.
My number
she's
one
got those
fan.
beady little Canadian eyes anyway, and on the baby cam, it's even more disturbing.
She watches my Daily Show every day, man. Do you know that?
I know. I hear her watching it. I'm like, I don't even watch that.
Yeah, what the hell? If you're not watching it, guys, you shouldn't go, because less than an hour, you get pretty much all the news from the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, get your single day tickets. Come hang out with us, guys. It's going to be a grand old time.
One person is going to think that what I said was serious, and they're going to be like, where is the money? Where's Anna?
Slut?
Which committee?
Oh, funny. Do we have any boosts?
We do. We have Lionheart, always the faithful, $50. Evening, guys. I'm sure everyone has seen Clown Queen Maxine Waters badgering the security guy for his ID, then badgering the people around her to badger him for his ID. Fun fact, 160,080 was her vote total in November 2024. God help us.
Wow. It is ridiculous watching the Democrats. We've been saying it for a while now. The hill they chose to die on is just the dumbest one. That is, I did run into somebody. My son had wrestling tonight, and I ran into one of my old classmates whose kid also had it. We were like walking out the door, and he was like, man, haven't things just been amazing lately? Like, the Democrats, what are they doing? This guy is definitely more tuned into politics. Like, he's probably going to run for government around here someday. He's actually used to work for Doug Burgum. So he's like very tuned in, but it was just really funny to see him like comment on how stupid the Democrats are being lately with this anti-government wasteful spending initiative they're on. Yeah, that's not creepy.
Yeah.
That's bright.
I mean, we're in trouble.
We're always in trouble.
That's the boost we got. So we got rants. You got those?
Awesome. Yeah. By the way, guys, too, boosts are much easier to get to now. We put it as a button in the top. So we do appreciate your support on Rumble. Also, very soon, I'm hoping maybe even by Friday, we'll have our own like affiliate code with Rumble where you can become a member of Rumble Premium and support Badlands in the process. But we're not there yet. But anyway, if you want to just support us directly and more money get to Badlands, go to badlandsmedia.tv and click on that boost at the top. Leave us a boost if you're watching not live too. You can read it on air later on. Micro Toolmaker. Badlands is the place to be for anyone really searching for truth and facts. You all are getting better every day. Where we go one, we go all. Thank you, man. He's like
appreciate that.
Extremely generous.
He's killing it, yeah.
Thank you so much. Monty 710. I would like to see Burn Notice become a reality, but for all the corrupt judges and politicians. I haven't actually seen that show.
I haven't seen that either. It looked a little quirky and silly, but I'll add it to the list.
I wonder, we could probably guess. I mean, is it like where they all just burn to the ground?
or notice. I think I don't know what that's about. That's the Brad Pitt one, right? Am I thinking of something else? Oh, it's a TV show.
Isn't it like some policeman dude?
His career as a spy ends when he gets a burn notice, the covert equivalent of a pink slip.
Like Tucker and RFK Jr.'s daughter-in-law.
Nice.
All right.
Interesting.
I'm down with pink slips for Congress. JL Sav 296. I look forward to Wednesday and Saturday eves. Thank you both for the last few years of sanity.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't feel like a source of sanity myself, but I'm glad other people.
We radiate sanity to others, John. We keep none for ourselves.
No, we keep the burden on us so that everybody else can be sane.
We are insane.
True Deplorable, $20. Thank you. I stopped by War Room channel to see the Dems in the Senate debate Reen over RFK Jr. Told the chat they could be watching Devolution Power Hour instead of complaining about what they are watching. Some people complain about what they're watching over here too, but
yeah, they literally come to do that.
Yeah. By the way, RFK Jr. has 30 hours. I think they're going to be voting on him tomorrow, and I think Cash gets his vote out of committee tomorrow as well. I'll have your update tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Are they going to rug us again with Cash? They've been rugging us every week.
I don't know. Dick Durbin is big mad that he's going to be the guy. And he did you see that he put forth that letter to Horowitz? Oh, we didn't even talk about Storch getting fired.
We can talk about it.
That seems like a lot of work. We can maybe talk about that next week. So I don't even understand. I just saw that he got fired, so I haven't done any research on it.
Complicated world in that DOJ realm.
Yeah, and I don't remember where I was just going with that. Oh, Dick Durbin, Dick Durbin wrote that letter to the OIG Horowitz saying that Kash Patel is running the FBI preemptively through Stephen Miller and whatever that guy's name is, the other guy. And that's pretty funny because it's probably true.
Right.
But he's just like freaking out about it. Anyway. Where are we at? B Plunkett 11.
I have to get it out of my head because now it's in my head because I didn't know why I had thought we keep none for... When I said we keep none for ourselves, it made me think of the quote from Lord of the Rings where Elrond says to Aragorn, I give hope to men, I keep none for myself. That's what we are, but with sanity.
That is us. We are Lord of the Rings nerds. Mm-hmm. Some more than others. B Plunkett 11. Vivek went on Ingraham tonight and shilled for the Federal Reserve.
I found a clip. I don't know if it's the one you were talking about. Maybe there was more to it. I wouldn't say he was like totally shown, and I'm no Vivek guy. I'm no Vivekian. But yeah, he was basically talking about how the Federal Reserve needs to get back to its job, which is stabilizing the dollar. I mean, it needs to get back to go fucking itself because it shouldn't be around anyway. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, but Vivek is super gay. I mean, we were telling you guys this quite a while ago, and
I never trusted him.
What many people saw as Trump endorsing Vivek to others like us looked like Vivek kissing the ring and trying desperately to draft off of Trump. And I don't think that went well for him. And the H-1B thing didn't go well for him.
No.
So, yeah,
I also, I want to, I think if he is going to run for governor or senator or whatever of Ohio, I think the people there are owed an explanation as to why he's not in Doge anymore. Like, nobody's really saying anything. Like, what was the, like, if you're looking at what Doge is doing and everybody's celebrating it, there was some sort of ideological difference between what is actually taking place and what Vivek wanted, and that's why he's not there anymore. So, like, what about what we're seeing from Doge is he not on board with? I think the voters have a right to know, because if they're going to vote in a fake election and elect a fake candidate, they should be at least aware of what they're fake voting on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Anyway, Monty 710.
Who would have thought a big pharma billionaire or multimillionaire wouldn't have our best interests at heart?
Ooh, I wonder how much you said is given to Vivek's companies. I don't know. Has anybody looked into that?
Could be interesting.
I'm sure they have. Maybe not. Monty 710. BB, have you tried those ocean sounds or meditation music? It helped my grandchildren. John, I'm not a sir. Usernames can be deceiving.
So is this referencing my son or me being retarded? Because like,
could go either way. You should
I
try
think I need those.
I do.
When
know
I
that...
actually watch at 3 a.m. with my son, I put on videos of people walking around Japan. So that might be retarded.
That is a little bit. Why Japan of all places?
It relaxes me. I like looking at Japan. I've always wanted to go. Haven't gone. Pretty based country.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like weird.
It just looks nice. It has a certain feeling to it.
There's lots of places that look nice, and
yeah,
why Japan?
I think you probably need a certain power level to understand the Bushido spirit, maybe.
I don't know, man.
Japanese maple trees. They look really nice. Rock gardens. You ever seen rock gardens?
Yep. They have those not just in Japan.
Very satisfying.
This is a weird thing to admit to.
Maybe it is.
Every night before we go to bed, we turn on Japanese people walking around. We turn on Japanese CCTV.
I don't watch them walking around. They walk around, and I see what they see as they're walking around. That's what I mean.
Some GoPro
I don't
stuff.
just look at the people walking around.
Well, what most people use to try to put their kids to sleep is like white noise machines. My brother
does
that.
Not to put him to sleep. That just doesn't work. White noise machines.
Yeah, or you just like YouTube a video
like fuzz.
And white noise. Yeah, static. There's some like meditation music that I used to play for my kids. I don't anymore because the thing I had up there died, but that worked very well. So, but yeah, Japanese people is great too. Whatever. Lion TS54 heard rumors of a full and
sorry.
What?
This guy said, BB just wants to feel tall.
That's awesome.
That is true. I do
true.
feel extremely powerful around Asians.
Lion DS54 heard rumors of a full and unconditional pardon for Snowden. I would imagine that's all that is.
Yeah.
Rumors.
Yeah.
Because I've been hearing that since Trump's first term, 2020. 1027JS, nice to see you, Joe. Says DPH. Thank you for the rant. Ready to rumble, Chris. Do you guys think Doge will address the election system, or is that out of their purview? I have no idea. Would be great.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I agree with John, what he said earlier, that there will be a remedy to the election system. I'm not sure Doge would be the avenue. I mean, is it an agency? Like, what would they look into?
I don't know if they can just if they have the capability to look at these government agencies and see where the fraud is going and all the waste and stuff, like they could probably look at an election machine, and see oh, hey, there's some weird code on this election machine. They did fire the chairman or chairperson of the Federal Election Commission, so that's a good sign.
Well, it'd be interesting if they were able to look at if they do look at the Treasury, etc. They could look at the contracts with voting companies, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because that could be a way to unravel it. Like you start by saying, how much fucking money did we give to?
Yeah, I think that might almost be something that the DOJ can look at. Pam Bondi, she just sued a couple people in New York,
right?
And so they could look at. I think Fox News has. This was interesting. Fox News, in their lawsuit with Smartmatic, has subpoenaed or gotten requested info from LA County and their relationship with Smartmatic, which I did an article on that a while ago. So anyway, good question. We'll have to see. It'll be addressed eventually. Angie K. Pompeo stopped Trump from releasing the JFK files last term. He doesn't want anyone on his staff to hold it back this time. Yes, but Congress has nothing to do with that. 2, it wasn't just Pompeo. Pompeo, Kash Patel, Ezra Cohen Waddick all gave the same reason as to why it was declassified. And I don't even necessarily know if Pompeo was the one who single-handedly withheld the files. They all gave the same justification for it. But this time they're just we don't care anymore.
Right.
Egra B4. I want to say that there is a benefit of these hearings if it is to get these facts into the congressional record where future generations can use it to refer to the true history of the times. Oh, dear Lord. if our future generations need the congressional record, I don't know a single person besides like me and a couple other nerds that actually go into the congressional record and read what's in there. It's very rare.
Yeah, I would never do that.
With technology these days too, like nobody's going to be referring to it's so convoluted. And here's the thing: if you need a congressional committee to get something into the congressional record, that process is stupid. There's got to be a better way. Like you should be able to just, hey, submit this, and somebody put it in the congressional record. You shouldn't have to have a hearing to get it in there.
Hey, this is one of the things. I don't know if it was Elon was talking about it recently, but we've talked about it before. Besides voting, and besides Bitcoin, one of the obvious and I would say necessary evolutions of our government is to have everything on blockchain. By that I don't mean national security information and right. I mean everything that's being talked about, every congressional conversation, everything that should be, everything that could come on the back of a FOIA request should just be on a public blockchain, on a public ledger, verifiable once it's codified. Like that's just the way things should be. And eventually I think, what is Bitcoin? What is blockchain? It's a ledger, but Bitcoin also has built on top of that ledger a consensus protocol. That's what it is. It's why it's so amazing. And you know what else is a consensus protocol? Voting. We just don't fucking have access to it, and we can't see the ledger, and we can't see, we have no way of verifying it, right? So we've talked about that a lot. But besides that stuff, just in terms of public information, all of this stuff just being on a public ledger, accessible by every American citizen, it's absurd that that's not the case.
Yeah.
Even needing to ask for information is a barrier of entry to the information that belongs to us.
100%. Angie K, we need Doge committee, so therefore Congress can stop the funding they keep passing. Trump can't just keep stopping the payment of Congress, keeps releasing the blank check. I might disagree with you, because if they don't come to an agreement on the next spending bill by March 14th, and the only leverage the Democrats have at all whatsoever in anything is the 7 votes that they need from Democrats to pass the next continuing resolution. They need to get to 60 just to get it out, the cloture out of it or whatever, to then vote on it for the simple majority. They're not going to get that. And I think the government's going to shut down. And that's what's Congress going to do after that, after they see all this waste and stuff. I don't buy that excuse anymore where Congress, we need Congress to see this stuff by these committees in order to stop paying it. Because here's the thing, these committees could have done that this entire time. They didn't once. They could have looked into it, didn't. They could have stopped it, didn't. They keep talking about, we need to be fiscally conservatives and stop passing these huge spending bills. But you know what? They never do anything that's actually close to being fiscally conservative. So the system's, it's not working. It's got to change. And no better time than now to push for that change. Another 179. What does another unrelated joke get you? $10. If European worked, I'd have gone with that. I talked to a cannibal today who loves feet, except Africans. Apparently he's lactose intolerant. Love it.
Man.
That's
Trump
solid.
even getting involved in that stuff with the boars and the, talking about the shit going on in South Africa.
Yeah.
There might be more to that. I only started reading about it today on a Substack, but there's some interesting stuff. The South African government has been certainly kind of regime oriented, and Trump seems to be applying some pressure to them. So
yeah,
he's applying it across the board.
If you haven't noticed, like throughout history, if there's one reason why a country or a nation or whatever hasn't prospered at some point, it's typically because of the government that's in charge there. So
yeah,
you get that out of the way, you can do some pretty cool things. OD115, John, I agree with you, but the problem is the way the country's so divided now. Who's going to believe who? I don't think the country's as divided as you think, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think it's as divided as we think either.
If you need a specific source of person to like put the truth out there for people to believe it, like that's just gatekeeping. I don't think we need to filter that stuff anymore. Just get it out there. Let people look at it themselves and decide for themselves. Let's stop with the excuses for the normies. Melindy, John, why is passage of time such an obsession with you? LOL. What did I say?
Maybe talking about timelines? I don't know. I feel like I talked about that earlier.
Or just like time in general, as in like, hey, it's 11:30 and I have to get up with my kids. And they've gotten up at 4 a.m, 2 days in a row. And right now, if I was a betting man, I'd say they're probably going to get up at 4 a.m. tomorrow as well. So
what are they doing at 4?
They just get up, come into the room and be like, hey, one was I have to go to the bathroom. That was the first night. And then I put them back to bed. And 3 minutes later, they're like, I can't fall back asleep. And they were just up. So they didn't even try. And then the next day they just got up and I don't remember what they said. I don't remember. But they were just up at 4 and they were up for the morning. So it's like, okay, well, that means I'm up for the morning too.
Yeah.
So that's been fun.
Just lock them in a room or something.
Yeah, it's frowned upon. It's frowned upon. I don't want to get in trouble. Because you know if they go back to their mother and like, yeah, Dad locked us in the room one morning. True. Then all of a sudden I don't have custody of my kids anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, Michael Flynn 59. Nice to see him, Michael Flynn. I'm watching Anna, unless she's on that at the same time as the Devolution Power Hour. There you go. That's a sufficient answer. Red Pilled American 21. Does Trump actually have access to all docs or EOs D-class on? It seems if an agency refuses to release, there's only military congressional options to force it. Is Luna a proactive play? I didn't see what you popped on the screen there, but I saw something.
Mrs. Bright said, WTF, BB. Probably about locking my children into rooms, but...
Oh. But at your age, they can't talk, so they can't tell on you. So you can probably do it.
He's trying. He's yelling at me quite a bit.
The answer to the question, though, is yes. Trump has like full D-class authority. He's the fullest D-class authority.
And no woman like Anna Luna gets where she is without being proactive, red-pilled American. So I bet she's been very proactive.
There's nothing that a congressional task force can do that Trump can't get done by themselves. Grant 59. I don't know about Vivek. The position Musk holds 18 USC 20 or 202A 130-day period in 365 days. Could Vivek drops out to accommodate? Vivek picks up where Musk leaves off. And I think Trump said he only wants the Doge thing to be in there for a short period of time. So,
yeah, 18 months, right? Which lines up perfectly with our 250th celebration.
Yeah. That's the one task force I can get behind is Trump's party planning committee.
Party task force. Yeah.
The party planning committee. It's amazing. But thank you for the rant, Crane Out. Nice to see you. Kamakariad. Elon Musk, Reuters was paid millions of dollars by the U.S. government for large-scale social deception. That is literally what it says on the purchase order. They're a total scam. Just wow.
It is pretty interesting. I mean, I think it was last Wednesday that we had talked about the Smith Modernization Act, and it's an example of one of those things that is, you don't need Doge to come along and be like, hey, there's people working in a mine shaft for federal firings. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. Most people didn't know about that. But it's nuts that you can read the Smith Modernization Act and it's just public record. You could just read it and essentially it just means American propaganda is legal and encouraged in the United States since 2013. That's why I've been saying that we kind of, like, I get why we all do it. We all fall into these rhetorical patterns, but we need to stop using the word illegal when it comes to this stuff and start shifting our terminology, because what we're doing is we're getting trapped into loops that are actually de facto codifying a corrupt legal system, right? And I think we're obviously seeing this week with Trump calling out corrupt judges. So a lot of this stuff is legal. That doesn't mean it's right or should be happening. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing.
Agreed. Well said. Angie K. John, you have a point. I've said for many years that they run on a closed border but hate a closed border because what else can they fundraise on? It's like that with many things. Then VP Nichols, final rant of the night. No mention of anything dastardly tonight. Otherwise, great show. Thanks.
They're definitely picking up our comms. They were talking about, was it the day after the Power Hour last week? There was dastardly comms.
Yeah, I think it was that old guy, Al Green, who said dastardly when he announced his upcoming impeachment articles he was dropping on Trump. So, anyway.
See, that's our contribution to the info war.
It's things that Al Green says.
Yep.
All right, guys. I'm going to get to bed. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, Daily Herald. If you haven't watched it yet, I would encourage you to tune in, run through all the news as quickly as possible, pretty much, and get you out of there in under an hour, guaranteed. Do you have any shows tomorrow?
No, never mind. No, I have nothing going on. Well, I have a lot of stuff going on, but I have no shows until Sunday night, and that's going to be a good one. Come to the narrative. Got a special guest joining, and
cool.
I never know whether to keep it a suspense or not, but it should be fun. You guys will like it.
Awesome. Well, hit the thumbs up. We appreciate it. Get your guard tickets. See you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to close with a SNL skit because this one is actually kind of funny. We'll see you guys later.
I dream that one day our great nation will have a word for the number 12. We shall call it a dozen.
And what other numbers will we have a word for?
None. Only 12 shall have its own word because we are free men. And we will be free to spell some words 2 different ways.
Which words, sir?
Donut. And the name Jeff.
What are the 2 ways to spell Jeff, sir?
It's the short way with a J and the stupid way with a G. And this is what we fight, men, to extend these liberties to all Americans.
Including men of color like myself?
We will also have 2 names for animals. One when they are alive, and a different one when they become food. So cows will be beef, pigs will be pork.
And chickens, sir?
That one stays. Chickens are chicken, and we will create our own foods and name them what we want, like the hamburger.
Made of ham, sir?
If it only were that simple. A hamburger is made of beef, just as a buffalo wing is made of chicken. But fear not, men. A hot dog will not be made of dogs.
What is it made of, sir?
Nobody knows.
But, sir, shouldn't we know what's in a hot dog?
Get out.
I'm sorry?
Get out of the boat.
Just go over the side?
Yes, go. A real American would never want to know what's in a hot dog.